Everybody deals with mental health on a different side of the spectrum. And this is just a part of me. It's not who I am. It doesn't make you weaker. It actually makes you stronger. People want that human connection. We're made to connect. So, there's strength in vulnerability. And so I don't want to take that away from anybody. So as open as you're willing to be, it will only benefit you in the long run. My name is Laura Joseph. I was diagnosed with OCD in 2016 and basically here to just pay it forward and support everybody else who might be going through similar things. So I was first diagnosed with OCD in 2016. I had been suffering for about 10 years with anxiety and depression, manifested in many different ways. Honestly, like kindergarten, I remember having to touch every single trunk keyhole on cars as I went home. And if I didn't touch it, I had to go backwards and retouch that. Thought it was just like a little quirk of some little kid in kindergarten. I also dealt with a lot of attachment anxiety. So with my mom specifically, I grew up in a single parent household. So that also impacted a lot, but it really kind of started manifesting in high school when I started to have eating issues, and a lot of issues started to arise with overexercising, undereating, obsessing about what I ate or didn't eat, how I looked, comparing myself to other people in my grade or in my age group, never feeling that I was good enough, comparing myself to my brother as well, and just being competitive in that nature. But when I went to college, it really started to get worse and worse. The depression specifically got worse. I did face suicidal ideation for a couple of years as well. And that's when I was put on medication in college. When I first got into a relationship was when I really saw the OCD. It took about 10 years to officially be diagnosed. It was mentioned for about a second when I was in college going to counseling for anxiety and depression, and then went undiagnosed until my relationship, and I really spiraled out of control with not being able to settle in the relationship without having obsessive thinking that I was in the wrong relationship. Prior to diagnosis, what OCD meant to me was nothing. I didn't really hear about it. You have the typical people saying, oh, I'm so OCD, and obviously that hits you differently when you're actually diagnosed with it, and people still say it because they have no idea what it truly means. But at that point, that's all I knew it to be. Obviously, I was just more familiar with anxiety and depression in general, but I'd never identified myself as somebody who would struggle with OCD, obsessive thinking. So when I was officially diagnosed, what I felt was exactly that. It was a sigh of relief. It was never like, woe is me. It was never why me. It was, thank God, now I have a reason for everything I've been feeling and doing and thinking. I had something I can tangibly kind of grasp and say, okay, now I have this. What do I do to fix it? What do I do to treat it? What do I do to help it and support it? For me, it was just so long not knowing and so long in pain that the answer and having a way of treatment gave me a sigh of relief and a way out. OCD is typically a physical manifestation of something so people can see it, right? The harder part of OCD sometimes is when it's a mental ritual and you can't physically see it. So some people can see tapping of something multiple times. What they don't see is the mental anguish that really is behind all of that. So I think that in itself can make it hard to officially, 1, diagnose, 2, identify, and 3, then, treat for somebody who doesn't know. Because if it doesn't show physically, it's much harder to, for me, it was just pure mental rumination that was just, invisible or hidden manifestation of OCD. So it goes kind of against the norm and the traditional definition that people know it by. For OCD, it is an anxiety disorder, and what it does is it attaches to something that you care about the most. And for me, relationships were something that I truly valued in my life. I want nothing more than to, share my life with somebody. And I found that person that I wanted to share my life with. And I think that that's where the OCD officially just kind of manifested. And I lived every day questioning whether this was the person I was supposed to be with, whether I was making the right choice. And also with OCD, the more you try to figure out the answer and the more you think about it, the stronger those feelings get. And there's no answer in OCD. And that's also what people don't get, right? You have to deal with that uncertainty and deal with that angst. And it was very hard to distinguish my emotions versus the OCD. And that's where OCD started to become me. And I didn't know that there was a distinction between the anxiety and me at the core of me. My first job was nutrition coaching. And I did a lot of counseling in that part. My boss always told me, we're not here to counsel. And I said, how do you think I'm getting the success that I'm getting? People know what's healthy and what's not. It's all of the things that are causing them to want to diet or causing them to not be able to follow a diet. They needed to be guided down this thought process that no one takes them down, right? And at the end of the day, OCD is an anxiety disorder. So I truly believe that a lot of different anxiety disorders can also be treated very similarly to OCD, because if you think about it, any anxious thought is still an anxious thought. Whether it's an obsessive thought or not, you're still having anxiety around it and you're still thinking about it more and more because it's causing anxiety. The same premise exists, right? The more you think about it, the more you're going to think about it and the harder it's going to get to face it. But the treatment for OCD, and I know we'll get there, is also facing that thought, right? So extrapolate that out to any anxiety disorder, and there has to be crossover with treatment. Whether you deal with something diagnosed or not, everybody has struggles, right? People don't ask, okay, why, right? Where is that coming from? And one of my best stories is like this woman who, through probing questions, she was on this diet and she couldn't stick to the diet. And I was just like, why are you here, right? And through all these different questions, it was like, I saw the light bulb go off and she said, I know why I stay overweight. I've been hurt so many times and I've, lost people in my life that if I stay overweight, people won't look at me and I won't risk heartbreak. Do you think anybody gets to that on the day-to-day of telling someone what to eat, and struggling to have people stick to a diet? They're not sticking to it for a certain reason, and it's on us and the professionals to be able to uncover those things and help people peel back those layers to get to the heart of what they're actually dealing with. The biggest thing I would say is it doesn't make you weaker, it actually makes you stronger. And if you can see that as your greatest strength, that will give you so much insight into who you are as a person and make you come out the other side stronger than you ever thought possible, because those struggles are actually your key into the heart of you. And it's you trying to come out, right? It's you trying to come out and you fighting yourself, being who you are and who you know yourself to be. So in any respect, one, I would say, get support, find somebody who can support you in this. Two, journal. It's my biggest thing. I tell everybody, journal, write anything down. You only do yourself a disservice if you're not writing down what you're thinking. If you're thinking it, it's already there anyways. So writing it down doesn't make it any less valid than it is in your head. And what journaling allows you to do is to see those patterns in the day-to-day, what's coming up, what triggers it. A lot of my journaling was trigger, thought process, and then where I think it's coming from. And if you start to think about those things, you'll start to see those patterns in your life. The other thing that really helped me in treatment was keying in my closest friends and family on what I was going through and helping them understand how it was impacting me and what I needed from them, right? There were people that I literally had to tell and say, don't allow me to talk to you about this, right? Like, that's not gonna help me. As much as I wanna talk to you about it, please don't allow me to talk to you about this. It's very hard to tell somebody how you're feeling with OCD. It's so hard for someone to resonate with you. So it can often feel very, very lonely. And the best way that you can get through that is to try to help somebody understand and tell them how they can best support you so that you feel that you're a team in this and you're not really alone in this. Don't find shame in it, find power in it. One, the stigma around it. I just think that people use it very haphazardly without really knowing the pain that it causes a lot of people day in and day out. Two, I would say it being an anxiety disorder, a lot of people who face anxiety can have little pieces of OCD in that and still get the same treatment. And social in general, I do think our society downplays the impact of mental health in general on a lot of things, a lot of people. Everybody deals with mental health on a different side of the spectrum, right? We treat physical health as if, it's no stigma around it. You have a broken bone or your muscles ache. Nobody says anything. You go to a doctor. The minute someone says mental health, there's like red flags or questions, or people hold their breath. And that's something that needs to change, because a lot of things that are happening in our society come back around to somebody dealing with mental health. The fact that people feel ashamed to admit that they're struggling is really an issue that we need to overcome as a society. If I can be one person in the many that are feeling something and willing to share their story, then I'm happy to do that. I've done it both personally on my own blog, my own social media, and then through OCD Stories, United Brain Association, and different organizations that are willing to really expose and have people share their story to help others. So I'm always happy to share my story and hope that people feel benefit from hearing of other people who are dealing with things that they can resonate with.